right, welcome to another episode of Modern Life. I'm here today with my girlfriend Stacy and my sister Tabby. How are you guys?
Good.
Hi. I'm good.
Today we're going to talk about one of our new favorite TV shows called Making It with Nick Offerman and Amy Poehler, who you might know from Parks and Recreation, or in case of Amy Poehler, Saturday Night Live, or a bunch of other shows. Tubby, you want to kind of talk about what the show's about?
So let's travel back in time a little bit. We are kind of, or at least I'm a huge fan of The Great British Bake Off, which is a very wholesome show about lay people getting together and joining a baking competition, and Making It is kind of the arts and crafts version of it. And
also kind of the American version. I mean, there's no other
Yeah.
American competition show that I can think of that's really like that. And when we say wholesome, what do we mean? I mean,
well, they do get a cash prize at the end of this show.
for the Making It show,
For
yeah.
the Making It show. But it's not like The Biggest Loser, people stabbing each other in the back. It's like everyone's in a barn and helping each other craft and getting through the challenges. Somebody does get eliminated every week. And again, these are just very normal people,
Right.
moms, people with normal jobs.
You've seen the Great British Bake Off,
Yes,
right,
I have.
Stacey?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think with that show, I mean, it's so interesting because it's the first competition show I've seen where, I mean, what did they win at the end? Like
A plate.
a bouquet
Like,
of flowers.
flowers,
Like
yeah.
there wasn't a cash prize or anything. And so with Making It, I mean, I think they kind of addressed that to where during the competition, if you win a competition, you get this patch, and it's all very wholesome. But at the very end, the winner does get like $100,000. So there is a payoff because these people do sacrifice. Like they're away from their families for 6
Yeah.
weeks. Like they're like, they quit their jobs for 6 weeks. They're
But I feel like
only
the
doing
judges,
this show.
I feel like the judges and the contestants, like, there's not the play on the cash. Like, it's more important for them
Totally.
to get the patches and to get the recognition and just for the fun of it. Which is why I think the contestants are always helping each other out, kind of like working together
Yeah,
sometimes.
it's the type of people they choose
Yeah.
to do the
Right.
screening.
Yeah, I mean, it's super family friendly to where it's like we could watch it with your daughter, and she was super into it, and I was getting a kick out of it, and yeah, I mean, it was like one of my new favorite shows, and I think it came up as an advertisement on YouTube or something, and I'm like, hey, I love Amy Poehler, I love Nick Offerman. This looks like a really cool concept with these, people making arts and crafts stuff.
They also did a really great job with picking the judges too, because that Simon Down, I'm probably butchering his last name, but Donen is absolutely one of the best parts of the show. He's hilarious.
So I
He's
want
always
to talk
adding
about the
something new.
judges. So there's Diana Johnson.
Dana.
Dana?
Dana
Oh, I thought it was
Johnson.
Diana.
No.
On the website, it listed her as Diana. So Dana Johnson, she works for Etsy. She's like one of their main trendsetters, is what they call her. And then, there's Simon, who does he's best known for doing all the window displays at Barney's in New York, who is absolutely amazing. And I agree, he was my favorite judge. I kind of had a problem with Dana as much, like, she fit in really well, especially with Simon. They played really well off of each other, but I didn't really like her. I don't know that having like an Etsy trend expert really fit into the competition to where sometimes there was something that I thought was really nice, but she would be like, oh, that's not a trend right now, or I like what this person did over here. These tassels are really trendy. And I'm like, I don't know
I see what you're saying, but I think with Simon, he has the experience, he has the craft, but then
Right.
with Dana, sometimes she would be like, oh, I've seen this before, I know this is not an original idea because there's 6,000 results on Etsy that
Right,
look exactly
and I'm-
like it.
I'm
So
fine
she
with
has
that.
she kind of has the knowledge of what's popular in the culture right now and what...
Which I think is totally fine, but then to like have someone win or lose based on what's trendy, I think is a little...
I don't think it was really what was trendy as much as it was what was not played out. Like something that wasn't used so many times, or a recycled idea versus an original idea and an original, like, something new and creative.
Right. Then I would say that instead of... I don't know if trendy is the best word to use in like an arts and crafts competition. No?
I think it's important.
Yeah.
to-
Okay.
to-
No, I don't know.
to-
That was just kind of a little bit of a
I mean,
gripe that
I
I
didn't
had.
think she really added much in
Okay.
terms of like when she was looking at the stuff that she pointed out. Like it was like maybe 1 every 3 episodes where like she said something that I valued,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that's because Simon is just so over the top. He was always adding kind of a comedic turn on his opinion that
Mm-hmm.
like he was more interesting to me.
Yeah, no, I think Simon always had the most to add, to where he would, as they're going around in the middle of the competition, he'd be like, "Oh, I would try doing this," or "I would
I
try."
don't
Like,
know,
he always had
Dana,
really
but then
interesting
Dana would,
feedback.
like, you could dip this in gold. You could do
Yeah.
this. You could do that. I guess I just didn't have that same perception of it. But what you just said, the comedic element of the show, I think plays a really important role in it too, because Amy and Nick are hilarious.
Right.
They have little sections in between where they are kind of away from the contestants and are just talking about the show, and they'll have the pun-offs.
Yeah, I love.
like-
I really. That was always a nice break from the show, having those puns.
I think it opens up the viewing, the age viewing group a lot, because
Right.
this show would be more something that would be watched by an older viewers versus when you add these kind of hilarious people into it, it like brings in like the 20s and the 30s.
Yeah, that might be
Even
true.
my daughter, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
the 11-year-olds, because now it's got something to make them laugh and brings in some interest.
Right. No, and actually, it's funny that you bring up the demographic, because I looked. So first of all, they did renew it for season 2. I think like after the first episode, they announced they're going to make a season 2, because the first episode, the season premiere, got some. I wrote this down. It got, where was it? Maybe I didn't. Oh, here we go. It got over 6 million viewers on the premiere, which, it being a summer show, was actually really good. And so for the big 4 networks, ABC, NBC, I don't know what the other big 2 are off the top of my head, CBS, it was actually the most watched premiere for a summer show for any of the big 4 networks. So the show was actually a huge success. And so if you look at the season finale, those numbers dropped off towards about 4 million people watching. But if you compare that to something like a show, Bachelor in Paradise, which is super popular, they had the exact same viewing numbers
Really?
that same week. But I think it's really weird, because I haven't really heard much at all about the show. I haven't really seen many articles about it, but there's obviously a bunch of people out there watching it. It's just weird to me that...
But maybe what Stacey was saying, those types of people don't feel the need to
Maybe,
talk about it on
right.
the internet.
Right. Like, there's no TMZ, obviously TMZ isn't going to pick up a Making It story. They're going to talk about Bachelor in Paradise.
Well, I mean, there's not any drama to discuss.
True,
There's no
okay.
like conflict,
Interesting.
and that's what sells
Yeah.
right now. And
That's
all of
true. It's all
those
that reality
sports, yeah.
TV, and this is like this is the anti-reality
Yeah,
TV nonsense.
It's really
which I think is
nice.
what is the appeal, at least for me.
I just think it's kind of cool. You have just like, there's obviously a bunch of people watching this show, but it's just like, you got to be in the know almost. You know what I mean? I don't know. Like, yeah, but I was just trying to do research for the show, and there wasn't that much to read up on. And like, another big TV show I'm a huge fan of is Shark Tank. And if you Google Shark Tank, there's all these blogs about Shark Tank breaking down the investors in the companies and following up with how the companies are doing. And I'm hoping that this show, Making It, will sort of evolve into that, to where there's just going to be these blogs, and because I was trying to find pictures of all the things that were made during all the competitions, and there was just nothing out there on the internet at all. So I don't know. It'll just be interesting to see if like the community kind of takes off around that show. It's obviously super early on, but yeah.
It'd be interesting to compare it to like what Shark Tank was when it first came out. Was it like just as big of a poll, or
Yeah,
was
I don't
it?
know. I mean, Shark Tank's been around so long now, so I don't even know. But
Yeah, I think it's also just really nice watching people actually make things with their hands.
No, it is.
I think, especially living in LA, living in big cities, you do really lose that.
right.
From thinking back to living maybe in a smaller town or just kind of making things on your own, and now you just end up buying it on Amazon.
Well, it's funny that you say that because actually 2 of the members are from Los Angeles. Like 2 of the contestants are actually from LA.
But I think just because when you're in such a big city, it's like you don't just run across it. I don't know. You have to seek it out more. I don't know if that's what you're saying.
Yeah, I guess I'm just comparing it to living in a small town in Germany, and then also Boulder. That's very arts and craftsy.
Right, but it's like, because it's so small, if there's some sort of arts and crafts thing going on, like you're just gonna run across it. You know what I mean? I don't know.
No. I'm also just saying the space available is, of course, very different. Not everybody can afford to have a wood shop in their apartment.
Right.
You know, so.
Yeah, no, it's funny though because like Nick Offerman, who is a woodworker, his shop's right down the street here in the San Fernando Valley, and I know there's like 3 community wood shops around here in LA, so there's definitely the community out there, but yeah, I just don't think you run across it unless you're actively seeking that out. Anyways, moving on.
You want to talk about some of the challenges?
I was gonna say, well, I wrote down some favorite items or favorite challenges I had. I don't know if you want to go over that.
Let's do it.
Cool. So some of my favorites I had was, I think it was episode 2. They wanted the space for the kids, right? I remember exactly.
It was a handmade fort. They had to make something for the kids could play in and play with.
Right. And then there was this guy Billy who was from Chicago. He was an expert working with felt.
Billy's from LA.
Oh, is he from LA?
Yeah, he's from LA.
But he grew up in Chicago or something, right? Okay, that's what it was. He was a felt expert, which was kind of cool. And he made this really cool kind of kids food truck, which I thought was awesome. And I think he actually won the competition for that one.
He did.
Another one that really stood out to me, there was a Halloween competition, and Joanna made this.
The holiday.
What?
Halloween?
No, it was a Halloween one, and Joanna, who was the interior designer, she made the washing machine.
Oh, the costume.
This is the Halloween costume.
Yeah, the Halloween
costume. Yes.
And she ended up being the washing machine. Like that totally stands
brilliant,
out.
But I actually loved Billy's in that too because he was a beefcake, so he wore a slice of
also
cake,
cool.
and then he built a mask out of felt that was a cow's mask.
Yeah, that was one of the episodes where I didn't actually agree with the judges.
Really?
Because Keel won that one, didn't he? He was the
backward,
and he was the backward. Wait, what was he?
Yeah,
He was
There's no way you could
dog
wear that
ate him?
costume.
The dog was eating him.
Yeah, and it was a costume that like you couldn't walk around in.
The costume was insane, but it was not practical
That was
at
not
all.
a costume.
No, it was. Yeah.
Which is something they've said in other challenges, like the swing. They're like, oh, how would you mount this? How would you hang this up? And I'm like, oh, but you didn't have that problem with the...
That brings up an interesting point, because I did think the judging was really inconsistent sometimes to, like, exactly what you're saying there. It's like sometimes they cared about it being practical. Like, there was a challenge where they had to make the lamp, and then there was a bunch of... I remember on a couple of the lamps, the judges were like, well, they were supposed to use outside material on the lamp, and then people would use like plants in the lamp and stuff, and then the judge would be like, well, this is going to die, so the lamp's not going to look good in a week. And it's like, yeah, but you're making them use stuff from the outside.
Yeah, that was a weird...
That was silly. So they care about it being practical, but
that
then...
was the one that Billy made the
parrot?
The parrot,
Yeah.
and they like totally bashed him because he used cardboard and it would catch on fire.
But then for the Halloween one, yeah, they like didn't care if it was practical. And then I also think... who was the one lady who wore pink? Amber. She like wore pink all the time, and she always made these really bright. There was like pink in almost every one of the things that she made, and she was always congratulated for having like these bold colors. But it was kind of the same bold colors every single time. And then who was the guy? I think it was Robert. He kept getting knocked for not using enough color, and there was always like a little too much gray, which I think I agree with, but I think it's weird to applaud one person for using the same crazy colors all the time and then deny another person for using like gray all the time.
The grain of the wood instead
was
of
that
painting
Robert or
over
was that
it.
Jeff? Because Robert was the design and maker, the one that made the cloud thing.
Maybe it was
and
Jeff.
was the one that was the paper crafter.
It just
No,
it was just inconsistent
but
to me.
Robert had one thing made of wood, and Nick was like, "Oh, it's really interesting how you made the different grains go in different directions." But then they knocked him for not painting it, for just keeping it
Right.
brown or wood.
Well, he was the one. Actually, I'm pretty. So that is Robert. right there. But yeah, he's the one that had a problem with color.
Yeah.
But I think that's a challenge that the show has compared to something like a cooking show, which I think is easier to kind of judge all around. When you have arts and crafts, there's so many different subcategories of arts and crafts that it's like, yeah, you can have Nick Offerman like realize having the wood grains go in different directions is really cool, but you know, maybe the lady from Etsy, that's just not in her wheelhouse at all. Like recognizing that, I think there's just so many different things.
Yeah, it's tough to unify.
Really different angles where
Yeah.
you can, it's tough to be really consistent with what exactly you judge because you can really attack it from a lot of different angles.
Yeah. One of my favorite challenges was they were all supposed to create a hangout with seating and then an activity. And Amber made the Havana hangout with the dominoes, and she had these stools kind of that had the different stamp patterns on it.
Yeah.
And it was fabric, and then she just made her own stamps and put patterns on it. And I was watching it like, oh, I think that's what Amy says all the time in the show. She's like, it makes people watching it go, oh, I can make that.
Right.
Like, this isn't.
Yeah,
it
that
gets
was
you
pretty
very
cool.
enthusiastic about the whole arts,
No,
and
it is.
arts and crafts thing.
Like I can make my own chairs. Like I think it was Billy. He made chairs out of like paint buckets for the outside seating
yeah.
area, and I was like, that was really like that wasn't. Oh yeah, and he like put the weaving around it. I think it was Billy. Could have been someone else.
No, that was Amber's, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
that
Was it Amber's?
Yeah.
Oh,
it was
okay.
the whole Havana.
Yeah,
thing.
she did
Yeah,
the rope and then
that's
she did
right.
the stamps on
Yeah,
top.
that was
to
really.
create
That's
it.
right. That's the one you're talking about. Yeah, that was really cool. It's like, well, a paint bucket and like rope just glued around it. Like I can do that. That's easy, and that looked really cool. Do we have some other favorites?
The terrarium challenge was
Really?
Like every one of those was amazing.
Because you didn't like the
to me.
terrarium, right, Stacey?
No, I didn't.
Really, I thought
I
everybody
thought it was
did
like
a great
so.
job.
No, everybody did a great job, and I had no problem with what was done. But they were looking for something personal, and I just really didn't feel like any of them really brought very. I think the ones that did have a personal aspect and a personal viewpoint were the ones they knocked the most because they didn't understand it. So like that was the terrarium was the one that Amber won, right?
Right.
And she made like San Francisco, and like it was really well done. It was beautifully crafted, but it was like, to me, it was exactly what I would expect of San Francisco.
Got it.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like
yeah.
it's like the picturesque image of San Francisco. And then at the
Right.
same challenge,
But
the
yeah.
Vermont one,
Yeah.
she got knocked for that. And I like watching those two people, and I'm like, they did exactly the same thing.
Right.
So why are you knocking her but not knocking?
Got it. Yeah, I didn't even think about the judging. I was just looking at the craftsmanship and. So a terrarium, I didn't know. I knew what it was, but I didn't know that's what it was called. It's when you have a little glass, a garden in glass.
It's like a goldfish fish bowl, basically.
Exactly, with plants in it. They had to
Yeah.
have one structure in there. And then what I thought was really cool, Robert did something actually with the glass and did etching outside of the glass, which I
Right.
would not have thought of doing that.
Looking back, I think it's a really cool challenge because it's super different from all the other challenges. It's kind of really scaled down and very like detail oriented because when you have such a tiny space, like every little detail matters, you know.
Yes, that's very
And then I
true.
think a lot of the other challenges were just they were all really cool, but it was like make this big grand thing. So it was kind of nice to have,
Them scale it down.
yeah.
I just want to go back to that holiday episode really quickly. That was probably one of my favorite ones too. I love holidays. I
yeah,
love
yeah,
all
yeah, yeah.
holidays. Love celebrating them. I always notice in a work of fiction, of sci-fi or fantasy, if in your world building you did not include holidays, because that's always a flaw to me. Because as a society, I think it's a very integral part to our cultures. So there was a challenge where they were provided with a door stoop and they had to decorate it, and each person had to choose a different holiday. There was the felt artist again made these 4th of July.
That was really cool.
The giant arms that looked like
He
muscle.
stuffed the felt. Yeah, it was really awesome.
There was the Valentine's Day one, which was also really cool. Again, it was all pink. That was kind of what you're saying
The
again.
ambers, yeah.
There was Joe's. She chose St. Patrick's Day and then made the floor out of golden coins, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, some really cool stuff.
And then the Halloween one was kind of looked like a portal that was warping you inside. So those
Oh,
were
yeah,
all really,
so-
really cool.
Kiem, who ended up, spoiler alert, winning the whole competition. Yeah, for that Halloween one, he had like made this like portal out of wood, and there was
Different layers.
was there fog? Or was just like a light?
Yeah, there was a,
No, there was a
like
fog.
a
Yeah, it
ice
was
machine.
really cool. Yeah, that one's really awesome. I also liked when they had the outside like garden shack challenge, and Kiem ended up splitting the roof so you could slide the roof open. Those
were all really good.
when that happened, I was like, oh snap, Kiem might win this whole thing. Like, because nobody was thinking on that level of like, I'm gonna slice this roof in half so you can slide it open.
Well, that was what was so great about Kiem, like Kiem in general. Like all his stuff, every time that they went and he would tell them what he was going to make, they were like, "Are you going to have time to do that?"
Oh, he was a ninja. He's
And
like,
he came through every single time.
he's like, I'm gonna do this and this and this, and they're like, are you gonna be able to do this in time? And he's like, yeah, I got it. And then he would get it done every single time. But he was so unassuming, and in episode 1, the first challenge, you're supposed to make your secret beast.
Oh, God.
And he makes this, it's a turtle out of wood, and I don't think it looked that great, but the turtle was in its shell, so that's his secret beast, and it totally fits him, because he's this super...
Intricate, introverted.
Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. Like, extremely introverted. So the first episode, you're like, this guy barely
This guy.
talks.
Yeah.
Like, his art is crap. You're like, he's gonna be gone soon. And then he, all of a sudden, just like, steps up his game in episode 2. And, obviously ends up winning the whole thing.
I
But
kind of want to talk about that because I don't. I think Joe should have won. So the last
Really?
episode, Happily Ever Crafter.
yes, I know where you're going with
The,
this.
the whole show is this like dad jokes.
It's just
So
puns on puns
it's
on
amazing.
puns.
She won the first challenge, so she got the first patch.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Then for the second challenge, they had to make a backdrop where people get married, whatever that's called.
So they had a real couple come on the show, and Nick Offerman, I guess, who has his
He's officiated.
officiated. Yeah, he's gonna marry this couple on TV, but the backdrop to it all has to be made by one of the artists. So that was the competition. And what did she have again?
Well, they had to make a present for the couple. The wife
That's
or
right.
future bride had mentioned that she really wanted to keep chickens. So Joe made a chicken coop, and out of all the presents, I thought that was
by
all the
far
presents
the best
were
one.
extremely well crafted. They were amazing, but that was the very personal one. That was somebody you could tell she was like the mom, like she's paying attention, and I just found that even though everybody did such an amazing job, of course, Kiem was an amazing crafter. She won the first challenge, then did that amazing present for them. Had the backdrop.
Backdrop
look
was
good
okay.
too.
It was fine. Like, I wasn't overwhelmed.
Yeah, I was
by
just
it.
surprised that out of those 3 things, she nailed 2, but then did not win the entire challenge.
Well, and I think that's especially with the last episode. But it was kind of a trend overall. I think it almost didn't matter if you won the first. There's 2 competitions every episode. It almost didn't matter if you won the first one, because the second challenge was like the big challenge every week, and it's like if you that kind of.
I disagree because not in any of the episodes did they eliminate somebody who won the first challenge, I don't think. from my
True,
memory.
but I know it definitely didn't seem to matter on the last episode
No.
because it was the second challenge was the couple was gonna get married, in front of whatever they made, and so it's like the best thing was gonna win that for the wedding. So it didn't really matter if you won the small first competition.
I don't know. I love the chicken coop. I really did. But I also didn't think that... I thought that it was very in tune with the bride, but not very in tune with the groom. Like, you have to remember that they cut certain speeches out, and I feel like they almost included the speech where she said that she wanted the chicken coop because Joe
Right.
made the chicken coop. But, like, nowhere in that whole thing did the groom say anything. He was against having a chicken coop. So
Right.
to me, it was
yeah, that's
it
true.
was
We
very
don't
Joe
know.
in the sense that Joe was always very like family, but she was like, she's the mother of the group, so she's gonna kind of go toward the woman versus give them a gift they both are going to enjoy, which I think Kiam did a really nice job. I mean, those chests are like something you pass down generation after generation. You know, I don't have one. I don't have the one that's in my family. My sister does, but it was something that my grandma had. It's something that was given to my nana, and then given to my grandma. And it's this really beautiful blue chest, and my sister still has it with all of our heirlooms.
In the first episode, when they're introducing everybody, and they're like, "This person does felt, and this person's an interior designer," and then they're like, "This person's a woodworker," I was like, it seems to me like the woodworker's kind of going to have a leg up, and it was a woodworker who ended up winning the whole thing. And especially for some of these really big competitions, I think to be able to know how to construct these big things, it seemed to be a really big leg up. So I don't know.
Well, there was 2 woodworkers in it, though, and the second woodworker was that girl, Nicole, and she was out, like, in the 3rd episode. So, I mean, you could put it to both things. I mean, I think I actually think that Kiam didn't have an advantage in terms of there was a very feminine, like, when you looked at the designs, there was a very lean toward the stuff that was, like, that brought out color, that was more, like, feminine, that was more, like, intricate, and, like, he was a very like simplistic. He was very like, you know, wood. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know how to explain what I'm trying to say, but I feel like that was Joe's take on it. Was a very feminine, and that was actually something that the judges were constantly giving credit for. And that was something that Kiam actually had to change in his work to be more liked.
And maybe he's just so damn talented that it doesn't matter. I don't know.
He is talented, but I see what you're saying also, that as an interior designer, of course, you have to be in tune with what's popular, and you're working with tons of people and gauging their tastes, whereas Kiam is kind of just doing what he likes himself. Does that make sense? I think the experience that other people had of actually performing this work with different types of people can be, you know.
Well, like Kiam said in one of his things, like it really brought out things in himself that he needed to learn in his art, because he was forced to kind of open up through the series, or he wouldn't win.
And also at the end, you're left with like the 3 most talented people. It's very difficult to choose, because you can't just be like, oh, one of these people is really terrible, because like everybody at that point has really proven themselves.
Now, for season 2, which there's not an air date yet, but obviously it's going to be at some point next year, I would think, or later this year. I don't know. No, probably no, not this year. It'll be next year for sure. Is there anything you guys would want to, any changes you want to see in the show at all?
I would like to see a little bit more structure with the judging, because I felt like it was really like wishy-washy at certain points.
Well, what I think would be nice, that what the Great British Bake Off, whatever it's called, what that show does, I think is really nice, is it goes behind the scenes and you see the judges kind of talking about, like breaking it down a little bit, going like, this person did that and I really like that. Like it kind of, they go through their process and it spends a couple minutes on each competition. You see the judges, you hear them talk about how they're going to judge it, and I think that'd be really nice to see for this show. Now, I think the Great British Bake Off is like an hour-long show, and this is a 30-minute show, so there's obviously only so much stuff you can cut out. So maybe a longer format would be better to kind of show some more stuff behind the scenes, but I definitely want to see, how many... There was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6... There was
it's 8, right?
8 people, right?
There was...
I would just like to see more contestants, and I hope they expand the show to more than just 6 episodes, get some more people in there, which, this was the first season, and it's kind of a pilot season, so now that I think they saw that the show's successful, hopefully they just make it a bigger ordeal, so...
Yeah.
What about you, Tabby? Anything?
No.
You're like, the show's perfect.
I think you're all, that's a good point.
But I'm definitely looking forward to season 2. One of my new favorite shows, and it's like something you can watch with the whole family.
Oh my
goodness. Any other closing thoughts from you guys?
Stacy?
Silence.
No, I'm good.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for listening, guys. We'll be back next week or the week following that. I have no idea what we're going to talk about.
We have lives and jobs and
Yes.
school and kids, so
Yes.
I would really like to try to do this once a week,
Yeah.
and we're going to make a better effort to do that now that we're all living together. So it should be a lot easier.
yes,
Yes.
very excited.
Yeah. Anyways, thanks for listening. We'll see you guys soon.
Have a great day.
Yeah.